Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres, and I'm inside taking a little water break right now because it's way too hot outside. So this seemed like as good a time as any to talk about something that a lot of people don't think about. If you hear weird noises in the background, it's probably Issa snoring. She's on a box right behind the camera, so I was wondering what the sound was for a minute and I realized it's her snoring. Anyway, before we moved out to our property here, we always used to think of game cameras as exactly that, game cameras. People who were serious hunters would put them up all over their property or all over the property that they were planning to hunt in the future, and they would figure out the patterns that the deer were keeping. Now, in the olden days, you simply had to spend some time stomping around out in the woods. You'd find the game trails, you'd know what patterns deer normally keep to, you'd watch for things like freshly munched browse and stuff like that, and you would figure it out. But the other day, Henry and I were joking because we were watching a commercial on TV, and it was talking about the Ring doorbell, and there's a zillion other doorbells too, like that. And I said, you know, if I lived in a suburban environment, I would definitely have some sort of a security doorbell sort of a thing. It just makes so much sense to know what's going on around your property, and if something bad does happen, you have something you can hand to the police that says, this is what the perpetrator looked like. Well, perpetrators are a moderately rare thing around here, partially because probably 11 out of 12 homesteads out here has at least one firearm. So in general, the bad guys either wait till there's nobody home or they go somewhere else. But also in general, we're not terribly concerned about that here. But we do want to know what's going on in our yard. We want to know what's going on our property. Several years ago, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, we picked up a couple of inexpensive game cameras from a big box store, and we set them up just to see sort of what was going on a little bit. And we didn't use them a lot, but it was fun to see what was out there. In the last couple of years, we've started doing it really seriously, and we bought a set exactly like this, same brand and everything, from Amazon a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I think. And those cameras have finally started to die. I mean, you know, if you got left out in the sun and the rain and the freezing and everything else for years. So we had just bought a new setup here. And I realized I needed to talk about it with you guys because I really do think it's important. I hear people say all the time, something's going on my property, but I don't understand what it is. Okay. If it's a squirrel, assuming the squirrel's not rabid, they're unlikely to kill you or your pets or injure you or anything like that. But you need to be aware. And some people just don't have the knack. We raised both of our kids so that they could spot all kinds of wildlife. Learn to watch for that little bit of motion. Learn to watch for the pattern of fur against a green background or whatever it was. But a lot of people don't have that knack, or they have to be somewhere else. Or maybe this critter that's coming by is only coming by at 2 a.m. and you have a fondness for catching a good night's sleep. And that's where the game cameras come in. Now, this is not a sponsored thing. We will put a link below, but we've had several years experience with this particular brand, and I can really highly recommend them. It's made by a German company. Of course, it's made in China because that makes it affordable for the rest of us. It is an investment. I want to say the 5-packs run about close to $400, and then you still have to buy the chips to use in it for storage. But I'll tell you what, it has been just a huge source of joy, excitement, and everything else since we started using these. You guys have seen some of our pictures before. We have gotten really good pictures of bobcats and coyotes and ravens and roadrunners and all kinds of stuff. And whether you're doing it because you simply want to be able to get some good photography, because these are decent cameras. During the day when they photograph, they take color pictures. You can set up the video to do time lapse. So say there's a storm coming in and you got some pretty cool clouds. You could set this up to do time lapse and take a shot every so many seconds at your choice. I mean, you could do it 1 minute apart, 3 seconds apart, whatever. You have all that variability. I really like the way the cameras work. Our older ones that we had that we picked up at the big box store, lots of limitations. Limit as to how much you could adjust things. If I put a camera someplace and I find it's going off too often, sometimes I can fix that by trimming back some weeds or something. But sometimes it's because something in the background is, like the trees or something, are being pushed around by the wind and it tends to make the camera go off. Well, I can reduce the sensitivity of the camera. So there's all kinds of cool little tricks you can do with the camera. But we think it's really important to know what's going on. We've talked to people online before and we've said, look, the kind of damage you're showing me, it looks like you have rabbits, or it looks like you might have coyotes, or whatever it is. And multiple times people have denied it. Oh, we don't have anything like that around here. And then 3 months or 6 months down the road, they discover, yes, the damage that was being done by jackrabbits and rabbits. When you think of rabbits, you have to remember that not only are there grown-up rabbits, there are baby rabbits. And baby rabbits are like rats. They can get into all kinds of little squishy things. Think about Peter Rabbit sneaking into Mr. McGregor's garden, right? Well, unless you're more clever than that rabbit is, and sometimes it can be tough to be more clever than a rabbit is, you won't be able to keep him out if you don't know he's there. Now, we've recently seen a bunch of new game trails around here, and we also had some damage happen in the garden. There is a single, I'm interpreting it as a young female, but it could be some other sex. You can't, there was nothing I could see that would tell me. But very timid by itself, and we think that's who's getting into the garden recently. But we won't know until we catch them on tape or we catch them in person. And the problem is they tend to wander through. Now, last year we discovered that you could almost set your watch by a couple of the big bucks that were coming around. They had a distinctive pattern to their movement around the property. And that, of course, is what the hunters would use if they were out hunting. But for us, just knowing when they might be around means we know when there could be a problem. For instance, a couple of years ago, we were having trouble in the garden, and it seemed to be rat. And I would get out there about 10 o'clock and set all the rat traps and stuff. And I really wasn't getting much. But one night, for some reason, I don't know, everybody was already in, and I decided I would set the rat traps earlier. So they went out probably 8 o'clock. I got a whole stack of rats. They were actually being active in our yard earlier in the evening than we thought they were. Okay, that's important to know, you know. If you have chickens, if you have other kind of animals that might be a target for wild animals, or for that matter, your neighbor's dog, or your neighbor's cat, or your cat if you have outside animals, having something like a game camera will let you figure out exactly what's going on. They're not hard to deal with. Let me get one that's brand new. There we go. That's the name of the beast. It's called a Blaze Video Trail Camera. And this is just one of those tabs that that you hurt your fingers on if you're not careful. But you get the camera, you get a strap for the back of it, and you get a plug, which we never use, but we now have a whole sack of these. To get this beast set up, piece of cake. Now I have to admit I wish there was a little less wrapping, but you know, sometimes that's not a choice you have. There's a bunch of sticky things on here that stick on by static cling to cover the various screens and stuff like that. So you get a total of 4 of them, 3 on the outside and 1 on the inside. And then you have batteries. Now, I used to use strictly rechargeable batteries, and to be honest, I haven't been able to get the good ones for the past year. Funny thing about that. So I'm using regular batteries. I get the Energizer Max, and they last in a high photographic area. In other words, something that's going to go off multiple times a night. They usually last me a couple of weeks at least. I prefer to use the rechargeables, but I did pick up some cheap rechargeables the other day, but to be honest, they're not powerful enough. Some of these types of batteries cannot use rechargeable at all, and it will tell you that. This one doesn't say anything about it, and I have used them with rechargeables before. And if you're going to do a lot of this, I do recommend you get a whole stack of quality rechargeables and do that, because it gets expensive, and I like the idea of being able to reuse the batteries a whole stack of times. Technically speaking, all I need to do now is figure out how to open this bubble pack, and that is the worst part of this whole job. You have to buy the memory cards separately. They always seem to come separately, and I find that interesting. We did not buy the cheapest memory cards we could. We bought something that has a high capacity because we didn't want to be... There's very few things more frustrating than getting out there and having some great video, and then it stops because you've run out of memory. And you're like, yeah. Very frustrating. I hate bubble packs, by the way. These little chips are small enough that they need an adapter. So you stick them in the adapter. You stick them in here. You make sure the machine is off. And you click them on. And then with this one is a piece of cake. I turn it to set, and it'll bring up it says welcome, and it gives me options to set things. The SD card just failed because it hasn't been formatted yet. So I will need to format that as part of my setup. So the first thing it does is it lets me choose how I'm making this work. So am I running it automatically, or am I having it motion activated? I'm having it motion activated because that's what I'm looking for. I'm running a video. I leave the photo quality high. I leave the photo burst and all that other stuff alone. But I do make the daytime videos be a minute long. Now, the big trick we discovered with this was we don't do super long videos, and we eliminate the response time. In other words, you can have the machine go, something's going on, wait 15 seconds, and then turn the camera on. Or you can have it say, something's going on, and turn on the camera instantly. That's what we did. Because we were finding out we're getting pictures. Sometimes the animals are moving fairly quickly, and seeing a bobcat's tail is really nice, but I'd like to see the whole thing. Eliminating the pause time before the camera goes off helped a lot. Now, during the daytime, I'm currently experimenting with running the video for a minute, and at night I run it for 30 seconds. Now that doesn't mean that that's all it's going to run. I turn my detection delay to 0 seconds. People who are specifically baiting animals, like they'll put down bait and they're trying, say corn or something, because they're trying to find out whether they have javelina or whether they have pigs or whether they have deer or raccoons or whatever they have. They sometimes will let a delay be there. From experience, I found I was missing, like I say, you get the picture of the behind of something as it goes off, and I didn't want the behinds. I wanted the whole critter. So we try and set these up so that we know animals will walk in front of us. Some of our best pictures have been taken actually right outside the fence here, because there's a game trail that runs right along the north side of our fence. Critters come along there, they look into the yard and walk along the fence. So whether it's coyotes or ravens or bobcats, all kinds of stuff have wandered along that fence, and it's great. There's all kinds of fancy stuff you can do here. Setting the newer ones, they have you can set how bright the flash is, all kinds of stuff. I don't currently play with any of that. The rule we have for setting things, because I asked Henry how he wanted this done, because he's the one who manages the files most of the time, is that date and time is done year, month, day. That's what he wanted. So that's what I do, because that's the way he stores his files. We use a 24-hour clock, so you're not having to think about what time is it really. You could certainly usually tell the difference between AM and PM because, well, if it's dark, it's probably PM. But other than that, sometimes you can't, because it could be morning or evening, and you can figure it out a lot of times by the direction of the shadows and the sun and all that kind of stuff, but make it easier for yourself. Just you run it on a 24-hour military clock and you're great. No biggie. And I am religious about making sure that the information about dates and stuff is correct. Today's the 20th. Only thing else I'm going to have to do before this, and you have options. Not everything is, set in cement here. We like to give our cameras a name, because that way if we're mushing things around and something gets misplaced, we know where it is. It's your job to decide what works and what doesn't. And when you first set it up, I highly recommend that you go out after a day maybe and see what's working and what's not working. Is it too sensitive? Do you need to change the sensitivity of the alerts from high to medium or even low? Do you need to trim back a couple of weeds, because every time that weed does this, it sets the camera off? Do you need to raise or lower the camera? If you're getting pictures of the top of the ears on a bobcat, but not the rest of the animal, then you need to lower it somehow. Are you getting a good body shot, or are you getting toes? That sort of thing. So you will need to look at your circumstance and experiment. The only thing you're doing is wasting batteries. Your cards are reusable over and over again simply by erasing them on your computer. Whether you're just using it to record a beautiful sunset, or you're watching flowers open, or you're watching hummingbirds at the bird feeder, or you're checking it out to see if something's sneaking around your chicken coop, having a game camera can make all the difference. And you can get these things in 1-packs, 2-packs, 3-packs, 4-packs, 5-packs. I mean, it's awesome. And we've been very pleased with this particular brand. They've held up well. They have tolerated incredible temperature variations. And I would definitely do it again. In fact, I'm looking forward to getting these outside so we can see what else is going on. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And remember, I'll put the information down in the link if you're interested in these cameras. We do recommend these. We've had very good luck with them. This is not a sponsored video. We just, there's a lot of stuff out there, and some of it's junk. So when we find something that we're happy with, we like to tell our friends. Until next time, bye.